Good afternoon, everyone. Here we have Lilia Bórquez. She has been a language teacher for over 25 years and has worked in teacher education for more than 10. She holds a PhD in applied linguistics for English teaching by the University of Southampton in England and has a fellowship with the Higher Education Academy in the UK. She has worked with students and teachers from different countries in Europe and America. Also, she has worked with the Mexican government in the Department of Basic Education and is currently a professor and a researcher in the area of teacher development and language, teaching now at the Universidad Autónoma del Estado de Hidalgo in Mexico. So, welcome, Lilia. We are very happy and glad to have you this afternoon here, and you can start.
Okay. So thank you very much, Esther. Thank you very much to those joining us here today. And so just rechecking, sound okay, video okay, you can see my screen, everything okay, right?
Yes, everything is okay.
Brilliant. Okay, so today, as Esther was telling you, I'll share with you a little bit of a success story, what has been for me a success story. And just to begin with us, I'll try to pick your brain a little bit and just to begin here. So I would like you to either scan the QR code that we have on the screen, or you can also go to www.menti.com and go and enter this code. So we have the QR code here if you can scan it, or you can also go and use this code that we are looking at on the screen. Okay, so we have this one, brilliant. And we have the first question, just what are your expectations for the talk? Let's see how you feel. Let's see some of the answers that you can get. Let me know if you have any problems to go into the page. But let's see. So what are you looking to learn a lot? Are you looking to discuss the subject? Are you interested probably in agency? Probably you just want to have fun, on a Saturday afternoon, definitely, probably, or you want to get some ideas, probably to include in your classes, which is also quite an interesting thing to do. Okay, very good. So we have those ideas. Very good. Thank you very much. Now, on the second screen, once you have this, what we get, of course, with the same code, we just get this question. When you see agency, what words come to you to your mind? Student voice, very good. Choice, very good. Empowerment, super good. Finding ways in a class where students can feel independent. That's super interesting. Oh, I like this one very much. Something I had to do in teacher training, but it's hard in real life teaching. So I think this is a very interesting one, because this may be kind of a shared feeling sometimes. We have all this theory and we have all these ideas, but sometimes it's kind of difficult to actually, bring it to the real life teaching. So hopefully you can, hopefully I will be able to share a couple of ideas on how we can do this in classes. Okay, thank you very much. So now what I will be doing today is that I will tell you a story, and well, once upon a time, a couple of years ago, we had, of course, happy students attending schools, enjoying the recess, having, playing during the recess, sharing lunch, doing so many things in classes, until one day we had the virus come and we had COVID among us, and then everything changed, right? And we had to go into a new world of teaching. We as teachers, we had to learn about technology. We had to learn to use platforms. We had to change the way of teaching. And most importantly, we had to go home and we had to start teaching online. So now the interaction was not anymore through, like face-to-face or in classrooms or anything, but now it was through a screen, sorry, through a screen. And at the beginning, I don't know if it happened to you, but for me at the beginning of, these sessions, I had these classes with students paying attention, interacting. Even sometimes, you had these very smiley faces in your breakout rooms. You had, of course, all these, activities that you could do. They were engaged. If you had, I don't know, for example, games, you could still see their faces in some of the screens, etc. But then, as days pass by, as weeks pass by, well, maybe the interaction and the engagement wasn't the same. I can tell you my face in the first videos was like, then the face was a little bit more like, okay. But the problem was that it didn't stop there. It wasn't only a couple of days. It wasn't only a couple of weeks. There were months. And as months passed by, we started seeing, I don't know if it happened to you, but with my kids, suddenly somebody on the couch, like literally like a couch potato. And well, not a lot of engagement, a little bit of boredom. And we started seeing screens, no more faces anymore, but off screens. Groups, students started attending classes less and less, more screens without faces. And the thing is that we even went further. We've been in lockdown for a very long time now. And these months have transformed, of course, in a lack of faces on the screen. And I don't know if this is your case, but in my nowadays, what is happening now is that if I'm lucky, I would see 2 or 3 different faces. And, this has been quite a situation that we teachers have to be dealing with. So when I was working and I reached this situation, then I would go, now what? What can I do to get my students engaged again, to get them motivated? And I said, okay, so I'll do different things. For example, I was looking at how to understand instructions, and I thought, oh, how about if I teach instructions by making sandwiches? So I had all my students have the ingredients, go together, follow the instructions, and they had, very nice products. And they were happy again, So, I thought that's a good idea. So I can do this. I'm going to create more activities. Even the ones who were not, like super excited to be on camera, they still participated. They still follow the instructions. They sliced the tomato. They spread the mayo. They all created their own recipes for their own sandwiches. It was great. But then, sorry about that. But then, so I said, I need to look for more ways, to engage my students. So I started reading, I started researching. I even created a superhero, writing woman, with a checklist, for writing. And if you had any questions, you could always call writing woman to help you. I also said, a lot of encouragement. You can do that, giving feedback to all the to each one of the students, working with them, being, of course, very mindful of what they were living, the situation we were in. So I started also talking to parents, designing new activities, creating new classes, etc. And to be honest, with all of these activities, by the end of the week, I was absolutely knackered. It was so many activities, so much material, so much not face to face, but individual attention that we had to do with students, that, by the end of the day, it was just so exhausting. So let's see a little bit. And what I would like you to do is, how about we have a very small poll, very quick one, and Kahoot. So as always, if you can't, please go to www.kahoot.it. Yes, and this is the pin. Okay, so let me see some of your names here. Let me see the players that we can have here, and let's go in. Just a quick question. It's one question. We'll see basically how is the mood. Esther has already shared the code in the chat box. So www.kahoot.it, and let's see some names here. Thank you, Rachel. Here we go. Sebastian, welcome. Yes. Very good. Mary, so happy to see you here on the other side. It always makes me a little bit nervous to do anything in front of Mary, I have to confess, but I'm so happy you're here with us today. Okay, so we have some of you. Let's just wait a couple of seconds, and we'll kind of, measure how's the mood. Thank you, Mary. Okay, very good. So let's have, you can always go into the code, and you can always also write comments in the chat. And the question is just one, is it Friday yet? Fridays were exhausting, and they were so difficult. So tell me, do you feel the same at the end of the week with all, this amount of things we have to do? And let's see what do you say. Okay, so hey, it's brilliant to see that some of you feel, you don't feel exhausted. Well, one of you feels like me, and I would have to say, I was doing so many things, and I think besides, I was not reaching my goal. My students were not learning as much as I wanted. They were not as motivated to be there. I had lots of cameras off. And so I thought, this is not working. So out with the old way, and I have to find a new way to do things. And what I did was to try to remember some of the things that I had learned along the years and that I read a lot. And one of the things that I remember was to have my students as the center of my learning process. And I know that a lot of you are super experienced in this, and we have listened to this concept a lot, student-centered learning. But I think, as some of you mentioned in the Menti at the beginning, that sometimes theories are difficult to apply, in the classroom. So how do we do, how do I bring back the learning around the student instead of me doing all these activities, trying to engage? And we may think that this is, very easy and very common, But in the research that I'm conducting with people from other universities here in Mexico, we have found that when teachers are studying to become teachers, they really believe we should be independent, right? And we should take control of our learning. And the teachers are only a guide. But when they become teachers, they change completely. And then they are the responsible persons for the learning. And they don't become just a guide, but they become the doers. So this is very interesting. So in general terms, this is very important to retake, because with the change in the teaching that we're doing now with the pandemic, we have seen, of course, that we need to go really into making student-centered teaching, because we need the person who's learning to be responsible, to be involved in the process. We have also seen that because we don't have students anymore in the classroom, there is a very there's a constant interaction between the learner and the context. Where are my students taking classes? Where are they staying? What have they gone through? Like some of them had horrible situations, and they lost somebody in their family. Some of them have been locked out, and they are going totally crazy. So this context is something that is also in an active interaction, and it constructs the learning conditions, right? So that's why now more than ever, it's very important to concentrate on the agency of the students. How involved can they be? So what I thought is, okay, so I have to go back into this student center. I have to, help them develop this agency. So I thought, I can have a project, because we know that projects, first of all, is a student center because they do it. We know that, it's it's focusing on the content. So there's not a lot of, whether you have the S or not in the third person, but there is a context there. It's very cooperative. There's no real competition there, because each student, each learner will have their own, personal relation with the context, with the material, with the content and everything. And it leads to a very authentic interaction of all the skills. And I'll show that when I explain the project. And of course, we have a product at the end of the project, which gives the students a sense of achievement. They have achieved something at the end. And of course, it has been known to be motivating, stimulating, of course, very challenging. And that is what I wanted. I wanted my students to be motivated one more time. So it has been said that to achieve this successful language learning, we need to have the involvement of the students. So I said, what can I do? So what I decided to create was a gallery, and we did, of course, this in an electronic version. In Google Classroom, there is sites where you can actually create your own website, where you can create your own blog. And in this blog, what I created was a gallery, and this was the project. As a classroom, we created a gallery. The first thing I did, of course, was to give them instructions on how to do it and an example. And so I shared, of course, some of my pictures that I had taken, and I paid special attention to three things. One, to give them attractive pictures. Like, for example, these snowy landscapes, it's not something that we see every day in Mexico. So, this has a little Christmassy feeling, in the environment. Also, I thought about creating this title by, and then you have Lilia B. Nowadays, designers and artists and singers and rappers or whatever, they use these names a lot. So by shortening this, surnames, so they could have like a cool name, And of course, I had, for me, one of the most important parts was to tell them to describe why they had selected this picture. We know that in terms of questions, we have kind of, like very yes, no questions, which don't require deep thinking. But then we have these very deep thinking questions, like why do you do something, that really promote the learning and really go and engage students in the process. So that's what they had to do. Select pictures, well, take pictures, select pictures, find the title, and say why they had selected each one of them. So I'll be showing some of the pictures that I had with my students. I had to select only some of them because of the time. But this was very, and I think, successful, because in this area, now they were fully responsible for what they were doing. They selected their pictures, they took the pictures, they wrote the content, everything. They had to be very involved because now they could choose a picture of anything they liked. And they were all kind of the same level, they were doing the same thing as the teacher, which is now kind of eliminates this power, relation that we always have with students. And of course, I was only a facilitator. I couldn't do the work for them. I only created the space where they would, have them. So I'm going to share a couple of these ones. This is, for example, by NatTV. All names have been properly authorized by parents, and besides, I don't think you're ever going to meet them, but I thought it was very good to leave the names like this, because this also gives recognition to the students. Recognizing them gives them a sense of achievement and, of course, motivates them as well. So this one, for example, by NatTV, the colors of the stamen make a lot of contrast with the sun. So what you can see here is probably a very simple sentence, but she used a word I'm sure she didn't know, stamen. And that means she had to go to the dictionary, to the translator, to the internet to look for a word she didn't know. There's agency in the way she was doing things here. So agency, it's about the level of engagement, how we decide how she feels. She felt very motivated to do this. We had amazing pictures like the one by Jatsi, where she talks about the simplicity, the beauty. And she uses structures like, it is simply beautiful the way the sunset and the beach and the sun. So we have in some way complex structures that were produced by children, or I think they're still children. They're 12 years old, 11, 12 years old, right? And so they went and they really look for the way to describe how this picture made her feel. And one of the characteristics of agency is that they become creative, that they are quite proactive to their context. And I thought that was very interesting. There were pictures by students where they actually shared their feelings, part of their lives, like, for example, the one by Sophie G, who's talking about her childhood. And one of the aspects that we have in agency, it's necessarily this relationship that is constantly co-constructed, with what is around them, but and with the society. And by that society, of course, we mean teachers, we mean parents, we mean other students. And so as you can see, they decided how much to write, they decided what to include. Actually, in the progress, in the project, I did not make any grammar or spelling or any correction. It was their own responsibility to have, a product as good as possible. Because at the end, once the whole gallery was done, they presented. they chose one picture out of the three pictures that each one of them had done, and they presented. So we invited parents, we invited the authorities, we invited kids from other classrooms, and they made, this, we had an inauguration of the gallery, and they chose one of these pictures to display and to describe. So there, for example, in the project, we have the 4 skills. They had to read, they had to take the picture, they had to write, of course, they had to speak, and of course there was listening in the end of the project. So we're kind of rounding up with this project. And this was done along a couple of weeks, which meant that we also had regular classes. We were working on grammatical structures, we were working on reading, we were working on developing all the skills. But this was kind of an ongoing project that kept them motivated and engaged around it. Now, you may say, well, yes, of course, these are the good students and they always participate, etc. But the thing is that even those students who normally don't or didn't want to participate, or were normally with the cameras off, or didn't want to speak English, because, sometimes in Mexico it happens a lot that you have to insist a lot, for them to actually produce the language, even they came up with very, very nice pictures and very nice ideas. And just looking at something by Ivana G, she said, a meat delicacy. And we're not judging whether hamburgers, are delicious or not for everybody, but it's for her, it was her own perception of the picture, the image. And so she took it with a phone camera. She used an Instagram filter, attraction. And if you see, this is a girl who didn't participate a lot of the time, but she says, I thought it would be a good idea to take a photo of my food. I added an Instagram filter and I liked the result. So even though this is, once again, a short sentence, we see how she uses perfectly the past tenses, okay? So once again, this project helped me to assess their production, their knowledge. How is it doing? Besides, of course, having their agency fostered. We had a case from Emiliano, who, I have to be a little bit honest, he was a little bit of a troublemaker. Those of you who have worked with teenagers know that no classroom is perfect. It's not that they always follow instructions or do whatever you want. There's always this negotiation of the space. They're growing up, they're all over the place. So they're trying to find their place in the world. And there's always, this pushing and pulling with them. But something that I loved was that he was one of the first students to say, I've already got my pictures. Please, can you choose them? Okay. Because we have all of them take different pictures. And then in the classroom, we voted like which pictures are the most amazing and which ones can go into the gallery because we only have limited space. So I didn't know he knew so much about cars. He has this amazing knowledge, and he was very, very motivated to write about cars, to write about his passion. And I thought, wow, this is a surprise. This is something I would have never seen if I kept teaching with me at the center and not with them at the center. So it was very interesting. So something that has been observed is that this agency from learners actually emerge when we have motivation in the classroom, of course, when we have perseverance, do not give up at the first try, when we have affection, this one, do I care about this? When we have, of course, when we take into consideration the students' beliefs, do they believe they can do it? Do they believe the teacher will let them do it? Do they believe this is something worth, doing? And of course, we're talking a lot about self-regulation. As I mentioned, I did not correct anything, and I did not give limiting, instructions on how much they could write. So each one of them decided what to do. And while some people wrote very few lines, but I would say very, emotional messages, like Anna Pau here, who says that as humans, we don't appreciate the good things. Even though we don't have what we want always, we need to be with a smile. I also had other students who went overboard, and went and took a lot of pictures until they got the ones they wanted and wrote a lot big messages, and really, really wanted to share. We even had, Ana Pau Arce, who was so involved in the project that she wrote an like special email, please asking me to let her have this big description because she thought it was very interesting. And in this description that she makes, it's like super interesting to see how she makes a connection between the picture and her life. So if we so you say Pamplona, Spain, Udasquena, it's a highly recommended place to go in autumn. You know what? It's marvelous the way we can dig deep in our mind and relate every season of the year with our life. So we're talking about kids who are 11, 12 years old reaching this kind of thought and achieving this in a second language, in a foreign language, which it's a lot, whether she used dictionary, she used translator, whether she had to do one sentence at a time and then put them together, I don't know, because what I received was the product of her agency, what she decided to do. She says we can characterize our emotions and even our stages of development and growth with them. Firstly, the leaves are very green. This could represent our childhood. Do you remember when you were a kid? So she's now even using, strategies for narrative text, which we had seen at some point, but she hadn't used until she put this whole idea together. So I would have liked, of course, to show you all of the pictures. They were all amazing, but we don't have the time. But I think it's very important to look back at these kind of projects and reflect a little bit, because we know that the language learning is composed by at least two agents, teachers, but learners are there as well. And I think sometimes we forget, that the learners are there, like submerged in all of these things that we have to do for I don't know if this happens in your case, but in my case, I've had to prepare the classes, teach, take screenshots of the evidences, upload them, then make sure the register is complete. I had to write to the parents, make sure I would tell this to the authorities, etc., etc., etc. And with all of these million things going around in my head, sometimes, learners were the last thing I thought about, how to help them become their agents. And one of the things that I believe is very important is to recognize that the way we teach, of course, always affects, but the way we teach is very influenced by our beliefs. In the research that I made for my PhD, something that I found that it was very interesting, and I'm talking that was more than 800 teachers in the whole country for one part and 700 for the other one. So we're talking about more than 1,000 teachers showing that we believe our students are not capable of things, And one of the ideas is that, I wish my students were more autonomous. I wish they were, they showed more agency in their learning. But because I don't believe that they are capable, in the end, I don't invest time in teaching them how to do it, And we have to recognize that the context of learning this foreign language is not something stable, but is very related to the individual. And this is a very, very dynamic process. And that's a good thing because we can always change it. We can always modify it. We can always learn new things, and we can always aim to have more agency on the students and make it really a student-centered process. This is some of the references if you are ever interested. And well, I guess that's all for me. Thank you very much. And I was wondering, do you have any questions, comments, or complaints? You're welcome. Matilde, the key element in our teacher is that, yes, of course, it's the teacher plus the students, and really enjoying the language. It is, it is. Precisely yesterday, I work at a university now where we prepared future teachers. And we were seeing that one of the elements is that, it's the enjoyment. And sometimes we might get confused a little bit in some of the teacher trainings that I've had. One of the comments that I get is, I'm not a clown. I didn't go to university to be a clown. And I don't think it's about being a clown. It's not, I think, entertaining them. It's enjoying the process because students are super empathic. So if we enjoy it, it's very likely that they will also enjoy the process. So it's something that we can always work around that. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your comment, Matilde.